The Sahel region of Africa is a vast and unforgiving landscape. It is a region plagued by poverty, climate change, and conflict. Niger, a landlocked country in the heart of the Sahel, is facing a multitude of challenges. The country has witnessed a dramatic surge in terrorism-related deaths, becoming a focal point of the growing global threat. The situation is complex and multifaceted. It is a story of political instability, violent extremism, and international intervention. At the heart of the crisis lies the struggle for control and influence, with various actors vying for power. Niger's stability is crucial for the entire Sahel region. The country sits on a major migration route and serves as a buffer against the spread of extremism. The international community is watching closely as the situation unfolds. The stakes are high and the consequences of failure are dire. The world cannot afford to ignore the crisis in Niger. Niger has experienced a sharp increase in violence perpetrated by terrorist groups. These groups, operating with impunity in vast swathes of the country, have unleashed a reign of terror on civilians and security forces alike. Their brutal tactics, including kidnappings, bombings, and mass killings, have left a trail of death and destruction. The violence has displaced hundreds of thousands of people, forcing them to flee their homes in search of safety. The humanitarian crisis is deepening, with food insecurity and lack of access to basic services becoming increasingly dire. The surge in violence is attributed to several factors. These include the porous borders with neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, where extremist groups have established strongholds. The presence of these groups in Niger has been exacerbated by the country's own internal struggles, including political instability, poverty, and weak governance. The situation in Niger is a stark reminder of the growing threat of terrorism in the Sahel region and beyond. It underscores the urgent need for a coordinated international response to address the root causes of extremism and to support the countries most affected by this scourge. The terrorist landscape in Niger is complex and constantly evolving. Two major groups, however, stand out as the primary drivers of violence: the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, ISGS, and Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM. ISGS, known for its brutality and indiscriminate targeting of civilians, has gained a foothold in the western regions of Niger. It exploits local grievances and preys on marginalized communities to bolster its ranks. JNIM, affiliated with Al-Qaeda, operates primarily in the central and northern regions, often clashing with ISGS for control. The rivalry between these groups has further fueled the violence, trapping civilians in a deadly crossfire. Both groups share a common goal: to establish an Islamic caliphate in the Sahel, overthrowing governments and imposing their strict interpretation of Islamic law. The presence of these groups poses a significant threat not only to Niger, but also to the wider region. Their ability to operate across borders, recruit new members, and access funding through illicit activities makes them a formidable adversary in the fight against terrorism. The political landscape in Niger has been marked by instability and upheaval. The military coup in 2023, which ousted the democratically elected government, sent shockwaves through the country and the region. The junta, led by General Abdurrahmane Tiani, justified the coup by citing the deteriorating security situation and the government's inability to address it. The coup has been met with condemnation from the international community, with many countries and organizations calling for a return to constitutional order. The African Union and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have suspended Niger's membership, imposing sanctions and threatening further action if the military does not relinquish power. The political crisis has further complicated efforts to address the security challenges facing the country. The junta's focus on consolidating power and suppressing dissent has diverted resources and attention away from the fight against terrorism. The instability has also created a vacuum that extremist groups have been quick to exploit, stepping up their attacks and expanding their influence. The situation in Niger highlights the fragility of democracy in the Sahel and the challenges of governance in the face of complex security threats. Section 5. The crackdown silencing dissent. In the wake of the coup, the military junta has moved swiftly to consolidate its grip on power, unleashing a wave of repression against perceived opponents and critics. Civil liberties have been curtailed, with restrictions imposed on freedom of expression, assembly, and the press. Journalists have been harassed, media outlets shut down, and activists arrested. One of the most prominent victims of this crackdown is Musa Changari, a renowned human rights activist and vocal critic of both the former government and the junta. Changari's arrest on trumped-up charges of terrorism has sent shockwaves through Nigerian civil society, silencing a leading voice for human rights and democratic governance. The junta's actions have drawn widespread condemnation from international human rights organizations, who have called for Changari's immediate release and an end to the repression. The crackdown on dissent has created a climate of fear and intimidation, stifling open debate and critical voices. This suppression of fundamental freedoms not only violates the rights of Nigerians, but also undermines the prospects for a peaceful and democratic future. Section 6. Regional implications, a shifting landscape. The crisis in Niger has far-reaching implications for the entire Sahel region, a vast swathe of Africa grappling with similar challenges of poverty, climate change, and violent extremism. Niger's neighbors, including Mali and Burkina Faso, are also battling jihadist insurgencies and struggling to contain the spread of violence. The coup in Niger, following similar military takeovers in Mali and Burkina Faso, has raised concerns about a domino effect of democratic backsliding in the region. The instability and insecurity in these countries have created a volatile mix, providing fertile ground for extremist groups to flourish and expand their operations. The crisis has also exacerbated regional tensions, particularly within ECOWAS. The bloc's response to the coup in Niger, marked by divisions and a lack of consensus, highlights the challenges of regional integration and collective action in the face of complex security threats. The Sahel is at a critical juncture. The international community must work together to address the root causes of instability and support regional efforts to combat terrorism and promote good governance. Section 7. The West steps back, military withdrawals. The United States, a key player in the fight against terrorism in the Sahel, has been gradually reducing its military footprint in the region. The withdrawal of US forces from Niger, marked by the closure of Air Base 101 in Niamey and the planned closure of Air Base 201 in Agadez, signals a shift in US strategy, moving away from direct military intervention towards a more hands-off approach. This shift is partly driven by the perception that military solutions alone cannot solve the complex challenges facing the Sahel. The US is increasingly focusing on providing training and support to local forces, empowering them to take the lead in securing their own countries. However, the withdrawal of US forces has raised concerns about a security vacuum, which could be exploited by extremist groups. The ability of local forces to effectively combat terrorism without significant external support remains to be seen. The US withdrawal also reflects a broader trend of Western disengagement from the Sahel, driven by fatigue with protracted conflicts, domestic political pressures, and competing priorities. This disengagement, if not carefully managed, could have detrimental consequences for the region's stability and security. Section 8, International Response, calls for peace. The international community has responded to the crisis in Niger with a mixture of condemnation, concern, and calls for a peaceful resolution. The United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, and various Western governments have condemned the coup and called for a return to constitutional order. These actors have imposed sanctions on the junta leaders and suspended Niger's membership in international organizations. They have also engaged in diplomatic efforts to mediate a solution, urging the junta to release detained political leaders and engage in dialogue with opposition groups. However, these efforts have so far yielded limited results. The junta has shown little willingness to relinquish power or compromise with its opponents. The international community faces a dilemma in balancing its commitment to democratic principles with the need to address the deteriorating security situation and prevent further instability. The crisis in Niger highlights the limitations of traditional approaches to conflict resolution and the need for innovative solutions that address the underlying drivers of instability, including poverty, inequality, and weak governance. Section 9, the road ahead, uncertainty and hope. Niger stands at a crossroads. The path ahead is fraught with uncertainty, but amidst the challenges, glimmers of hope remain. The resilience of the Nigerian people, their unwavering spirit in the face of adversity, provides a foundation for a brighter future. The international community must remain engaged, providing support for humanitarian assistance, promoting dialogue and fostering inclusive governance. Investing in education, healthcare, and economic development is crucial to addressing the root causes of instability and creating opportunities for all Nigerians. The crisis presents an opportunity for a course correction, a chance to break free from the cycles of violence and poverty that have plagued the Sahel for too long. It is a call to action for Nigerians and the international community alike to work together in solidarity and hope to build a more peaceful, just and prosperous future for Niger and the Sahel region.